Sun reports.
President Trump has been speaking optimistically about a second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Speaking to reporters outside the White House on Sunday, he said the venue is already being discussed.
We're negotiating a location. It will be announced probably not in the not-too-distant future. They have made it very clear. In fact, they've actually said to the media that they would like to meet. And they do want to meet, and we want to meet, and we'll see what happens.
He also revealed that he has spoken indirectly with the North Korean leader, adding that the situation with Pyongyang is much better now compared to when he first took office. President Trump, however, added that sanctions against the regime remain in effect. As for the location of a second summit, CNN reported last week that the Trump administration is reviewing a number of places. Citing diplomatic sources, the report said Vietnam, Hawaii, and even the demilitarized zone that separates the two Koreas have been mentioned as possible summit venues. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Today, the South Korean government is introducing a new system for setting the country's minimum wage to make sure all voices are heard in the process. It'll divide the roles of the Minimum Wage Commission into two separate bodies. According to the Labor Ministry, representatives of the government will first set an appropriate range for any increase, and the final decision will be made jointly by representatives of companies, non-regular workers, and small businesses. The government hopes the new system can bridge the gap between employers and employees after the controversy stirred by the steep rise in wages over the past couple of years. From the start, the Moon administration has made creating jobs one of its top priorities. But while some age groups have seen the job situation improve, the employment rate for people in their 20s is still worryingly low. Our Choi Si-young tells us why.
The country's Trade Research Institute said Sunday that the youth employment rate hasn't recovered to above the level it was in the 2009 financial crisis. But other age groups, particularly the 50s and 60s, have seen increases in employment rates. The institute said the lack of jobs and the increased number of people in their 20s are behind the low youth employment rate. The employment rate is calculated by dividing the number of people employed from the working population. But the number of people in their 20s has risen due to the sons and daughters of baby boomers reaching that age. The working population for the 20s last year was about 7 million, up nearly 300,000 from 2013. The number of people in their 20s employed in the manufacturing sector showed a fall of roughly 30,000 between 2015 and 2018. But the employment rate for people in their 50s displayed a dramatic increase in the manufacturing, construction, and service industries in the same period. The rate for people in their 60s also saw a hike in the manufacturing and construction industries, thanks to improving health conditions. The institute warns the government should roll out measures for the unemployed people in their 20s because their unemployment, if prolonged, will drag down the country's economic growth and increase welfare expenses. The institute recommends restoring the manufacturing industry's competitiveness while fostering high-value added service sectors. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in is meeting this afternoon with the owners of some small and medium-sized businesses and venture firms. Officials say the goal of today's meeting at the Blue House is to have a candid discussion so that the president and his administration can better focus their efforts or even tweak policy to boost a South Korean economy that's stuck in a rut of slow growth. The president has opened the new year with a strong focus on fixing the economy. For the first time, he held a New Year's event at the Korea Federation of SMEs. And his chief policy aide has been meeting with executives from local conglomerates. This coming Sunday, South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics will celebrate the 50th anniversary of its founding. And ahead of that occasion, our Ko Ryun-hee walks us through the past half-century that saw Samsung grow from a tiny local operation to a multi-billion-dollar brand known around the world.
Samsung Electronics was established as a corporation on January 13, 1969. In its first year, the company's sales were a mere $33,000. During its early years, the firm mainly focused on producing home electronics, such as TVs, washing machines, and refrigerators for the domestic market. At the time, its sales were significantly lower than its local rival Goldstar, currently known as LG Electronics. The company's fortune started to change in 1984 when Samsung Electronics sales recorded more than $1.2 billion, surpassing LG Electronics for the first time. The boom came as Samsung Electronics moved into the global market, mass-producing color TVs and exporting them around the world. In 1980, Samsung Electronics merged with Samsung Semiconductor, helping the company to break into the semiconductor market. Samsung's record-breaking milestones included developing the world's first 64-megabit DRAM in 1992. Samsung Electronics continued to grow rapidly, but it wasn't until the turn of the century that annual profits began to regularly pour in by the tens of billions of dollars. Samsung Electronics posted sales of around $51.6 billion in 2004. By 2010, that figure had swelled to more than $100 billion. In 2017, the South Korean tech giant posted record earnings on strong chip sales. It was an amount 4.37 million times higher than its first-year sales in 1969. As the company expanded, its workforce exploded as well. As of the third quarter of last year, Samsung Electronics employed more than 103,000 people in South Korea. Globally, it had more than 320,000 workers on its books as of 2017. Local corporate tracker Korea CXO Institute says Samsung's success can be attributed to its endless innovation, bold investment, and globalization in products and services. The institute said such moves were only possible because of talented owners and professional businessmen working at the company over the years. 고르니, Arirang News.
South and North Korea were busy last year building peace. Now there's a special exhibition in the South looking at not only last year's inter-Korean summits, but the ones that came before. Our Park Hee-jun has this report.
You may be familiar with this bench. It's where South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had a private chat during their inter-Korean summit at the border village of Panmunjom last year. But where I am is nowhere near the border with North Korea. In fact, it's at a special exhibition in Sejong City.
The Presidential Archives is hosting a special exhibition that walks visitors through all the past inter-Korean summits. Titled The Road to Peace, the exhibition displays around 150 different records, photos, and videos that document the historic meetings. They include a preparation plan for the 2000 Inter-Korean Summit and a summary of the results of the first sit-down session of the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit, all revealed for the very first time. Also on display are containers that carried soil from Paektusan Mountain and water from the Taedonggang River for when the leaders planted the ceremonial tree during their summit last year.
It's great that we can see the gifts and souvenirs that weren't shown on television. I think those who come to this exhibition will get a lasting impression of the inter-Korean summits.
It's also an opportunity for visitors to realize how far the two Koreas have come in their efforts to build peace on the Korean peninsula. And many visitors have hopes that one day, South and North Korea will become one.
I hope all relations with neighboring countries will head to the right direction this year. And as a Korean, I hope the two Koreas will reunite soon and be able to advance together.
Visitors can enjoy the exhibition for free. It will run until June this year. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News, Sejong.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines.
South Korea and Japan are currently locked in a dispute after Tokyo claimed that a South Korean warship used targeting radar to lock onto a Japanese patrol plane late last year. After Tokyo unveiled an edited video recording of the incident, Seoul's defense ministry also released its own video last Friday in a move to counter Japan's claims. Park Jiwon has the details.
South Korea's Ministry of National Defense released the video on its official YouTube account Friday afternoon. In the video, the Republic of Korea Navy asked Japan why, in international waters where another country's warship is engaged in the humanitarian rescue of a ship in distress, it would send a patrol aircraft on threatening low-altitude flight in the first place. The video says the Japanese plane approached the South Korean destroyer from a distance of just 500 meters and an altitude of just 150 meters. The ship's crew said they heard a loud noise and felt strong vibrations due to the flight, which they said was menacing and threatening. The video released by Japan last week showed that the Japanese plane recognized that the South Korean ship was on a rescue mission, but the South Korean video said the plane nonetheless continued its unprofessional and aggressive flight at a very close distance. A military aircraft, is said, should not conduct such a low-altitude flight near a foreign warship because it could cause accidental clashes. Also, Japan had claimed the plane followed internationally agreed rules when it came to the flight's altitude. For that claim, Japan quoted regulations under the Convention of International Civil Aviation. However, the South Korean Defense Ministry pointed out that Article 3 of the convention clearly states that the agreement applies only to civil aircraft and not to state-operated aircraft, which includes those used by military, customs, and police services. So the video points out that Japan is interpreting an international agreement in an arbitrary way to justify its false claims. South Korea also once again stressed that its warship did not lock on the plane using its fire control radar. Rather, it used only search radars for humanitarian purposes. The Defense Ministry's video pointed out, based on Japan's own video, that the Japanese pilots knew the ship's guns were not pointed at them and knew the South Korean ship had no intention of attacking. Lastly, the video says communications from the Japanese plane were extremely unclear because of loud noises. The video included actual sound recordings from the ship showing the messages were very hard to understand. The Defense Ministry stressed once again that the South Korean Navy had no intention of threatening the Japanese plane, saying that if Japan has any evidence of radar frequency, then it should provide it at working level meetings. South Korean Ministry also asked Japan to apologize for its aggressive low-altitude flight, urging Japan not to use the incident for political reasons. Jiwon, Arirang News.
Joining us today to shed light on this issue further, we have with us Professor Kim Deok-ki, who is not only a professor of Korea-U National University's Graduate School of Security Science, but is also the former captain of another Korean warship, the Sejong the Great Destroyer. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we've heard that report which outlines what the South Korean video shows, but can you explain in your own words the current dispute between South Korea and Japan?
And last December 20th, and Korea-U.S. the Great, and got some data for distressed North Korean fishing vessel. After that, they approached to Daewate fishing area with the Marine Corps Sambong. During that time, they are operating the general radar systems, including other equipment, without any problems, according to the international law and regulations. And also, after they arrived at their 12:30 in the afternoon, and 3 hours later, around 3 hours later, Japan P-1 aircraft approached to operational area. Before the P-1 approaching to area, Korea-U.S. the Great identified approaching aircraft is our friendly Japan aircraft. After that, they don't pay much attention to the aircraft without any problems. And after that, P-1 aircraft approached to our friendly forces, very close altitude as shown on the videotape. Their altitude around the 150 meters, range around 500 meters. But we did not take care concern about that. But that kind of the closing altitude and the ranges is a big problem for our friendly forces, Korea-U.S. the Great and the Sambong. So it's the problem. And the 20th, and the Japanese Prime Minister ordered to the military side to release that kind of information, including video picture. After that, they stressed that Korea-U.S. the Great, during that time, emitted the fire control radar against the P-1 aircraft. So that's the hot issue after that. That's a problem.
Yes, so the South Korean video has a number of rebuttals of Japan's accusations. And the number one, it seems, being that the Tokyo has said the South Korean warship used a fire control radar, but the South Korean side have said that it was simply a search radar that they were using for their humanitarian rescue operation at the time. Now, can you explain the difference between the two different types of radar, the fire control radar and just the simple search radar?
Okay, that is very important. What kind of radar systems were available at that time? I believe this kind of configuration of the Kwangeto dot grade. Kwangeto dot grade have 4 different radars. First one is the navigation radar for maneuvering. Second one is the surface search radar for surface targets, and the tracking radar for air target. And also air search radar do they have. During the operation, Kwangeto dot grade surface search radar for surface ships targeting and analyzing, and also Kwangeto dot grade using the IR camera to take a photo for the situation. The IR camera attached at the star radar. For using the IR camera, star radar should be rotating. But during the situation, maybe P1 aircraft, so the star radar was rotating. It means that they recognize that star radar is radiating the frequencies against the P1 aircraft. For IR camera, the radar should be rotating without radiation for frequencies to any other places. That's the real situation. So Japanese side, they strongly argue that still this radar was radiating their frequencies to P1 aircraft. So it means that their argument was not true, because so radar only available for IR camera instead of the radiating its own frequencies against the P1 aircraft. Yeah.
So Tokyo claims that it detected this radar frequency and they collected it on the plane to prove that it was a fire control radar. But at the moment, they're unwilling to release this data because they say it's sensitive military information. First, I want to ask, how likely is it that they would have accurately picked up this information that the radar was being emitted? And secondly, is it understandable that they would not want to release this information?
During the operation, and the naval forces are gathering the data from this kind of radar systems, and also they are making some logbook for keeping. After the Japanese argument, we released, please, you should release that related information through the P1 aircraft, if we have. After that, Japanese did not release any information related to that situation. It means Japan did not have any related detailed information for radar frequencies, radiation. That's a big problem. Yeah.
Do they have the technology, though, to perhaps have this kind of technology?
Yeah.
Or do you think it wasn't on the plane at all?
As I know, and the Jiwon aircraft, the new ones, and currently Japanese main maritime patrol aircraft are P8 aircraft. They are replaced their own made Jiwon aircraft. Jiwon aircraft has their own technology for recording all operational situation in that area. So it means that if they have Kwangeto dot grade radiation frequency situation, maybe they have recorded data. So if they have, they should release to the public. That's the main reason.
We'll have to see whether they do, because they have said it's sensitive military information, so they're mulling over whether to release it or not. But if they do have it, then I think it's very important that they do release it. Yeah. But we'll have to see whether that does happen.
Yes, if they have, they should release to the public without any problems. You know, we should have enhance our mutual trust between the two countries, because that issue is very sensitive to the two countries. That's the problem.
South Korea, in their video, also raised another point, saying that questioning why this patrol plane was flying so close to their ship and flying so low as well. I mean, that's the one piece of original footage that the South Korean video had, and it clearly shows the plane flying quite low. What is your reaction to that footage, and what would you have said if you saw this footage on your ship?
You know, and according to the international law, and naval ships and aircraft should follow the following regulations. First one is the UN Convention Law of the Sea. According to the Article 87, according of the UN Convention Law of the Sea, naval ships and aircraft have their freedom of navigation right. Second one is that they should follow the international regulations for preventing collisions at the sea. And also, in regional countries, we have agreed for preventing incidents at the sea through that kind of special meetings. And the Western Pacific Naval Symposium, which is held in every even years. And last November, South Korea hosted that Western Pacific Naval Symposium. During that time, they are revised existing already search and rescue operation regulations for preventing any kind of naval incident at sea, as well as their special regulations for maritime confidence building measures. During that time, they already agreed that agreement for CUES. CUES means that Code for Unplanned Encounters at the Sea Agreement, which is reached in 2014 in Shanghai. So last November, when South Korean Navy hosted that meeting, they revised that articles in detail. So naval ships and naval aircraft should follow 3 regulations and rules for preventing any kind of naval incident at the sea in the region. I bring some special material, as we saw on the videotape. And the P-1 aircraft is very close to our naval assets. And the P-1 aircraft flight altitude around 150 meters, the range around 500 meters. It means that P-1 aircraft flight pattern is a hostile act against South Korean search and rescue operation naval vessels. This is a big problem. But according to the international law and regulations, that kind of activity is a hostile act.
So yes, it was a very low-flying altitude plane. We saw that in the video footage. And of course, Japan must answer to that. We have to ask why they did such a thing. But we're already running out of time, Professor, so I'm going to have to close towards the end. So this dispute has escalated very quickly and to a much bigger scale than perhaps we might have expected when it first happened. The South Korean video calls for working-level talks to take place. And even when the foreign ministers of the two countries spoke on the phone last week, they both agreed on the need for talks. But so far, there's no date set for such a meeting. I mean, how do you think things should play out now? How do you think it will play out, and what should the two sides do?
As you know, and we have a bilateral meeting with Japan and the 3-layer cooperation channels. First channel is the ministerial level, and the second channel is Korea Joint Chiefs of Staff and Japan Chiefs of Office, Joint Chief of Office, and the last level is the Navy headquarters level. And the JCS level, we have a J5 meeting every year. They have the meeting to discuss many kinds of issues, including naval incident issues and also maritime confidence measures, as well as some information exchange programs. And also, on Navy area, there are 2 big kinds of areas. First one is Navy 2, Navy 2. Every year, we have to discuss many kinds of naval issues, including search and rescue operations and humanitarian aid and disaster relief operations in the area, as well as sometimes we are cooperating for naval operation, naval special warfare operation areas. And also, in Japan, Korea, and the United States and China, they have a bilateral special agreement for preventing any kind of naval incident in that area. For example, in 1972, United States and Soviet Union agreed special agreement for avoidance of the naval incident. And also, after that, early 1980s, Korea and Russia agreed the same style of agreement, and Russia, Japan also made the agreement. If we necessary, Korea and Japan, we should make that kind of agreement to prevent any kind of incident on the high seas or in the vicinity of the seas. That's required for the two countries.
Let's hope the two countries can repair this current dispute, and especially because, as you mentioned earlier, I think South Korea and Japan should be trust-building rather than disputing over something like this.
Yes.
And we hope they can be settled very quickly.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, Professor, thank you for coming in today and sharing us your insights on this matter.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
That concludes our show for today. I'll be back same time tomorrow for more in-depth looks into the day's top stories. Thank you for watching and hope you can join us again next time. Goodbye.
January monthly highlights.
Now, the U.S.-China trade spat is...
Get all the news happening in and out of Korea. Foreign correspondents bring in different journalists from all over the world to sit down and discuss the most recent issues while revealing behind stories as well as their own personal opinions regarding the events. From exclusive backstories and more, understand current affairs through the engaging conversations and debates on Foreign Correspondents. Have you heard of Smart Factory? It refers to high digitized and connected production facilities that rely on smart manufacturing. Thought to be the so-called factory of the future, the term was created amidst the strengthening manufacturing capabilities of various countries around the world. Here's your chance to check out the latest achievements based on the Smart Factory project. Smart Biz Accelerators. 2018 has been a big year for international diplomacy in Korea. Believing in the importance of exchange and cooperation in today's global age, the show seeks to reinforce relationships between Korea and its close allies. Join us as we connect with foreign ambassadors to better understand Korean politics, economy, culture, and more. The Diplomat.
Literally speaking, a piece of poetry brought in by a wave. A word. I am on the road in search of the most beautiful word on earth. Some say it's life. Some say it's love. Sometimes there are many roads. Sometimes a road does not exist. What would you say? Would you say it's you?